In the opening scene of The Watcher in the Night, we are introduced to the protagonist, a retired welder in his 60s, living alone on his sprawling farm. The scene is set in the stillness of the countryside, bathed in soft moonlight as he embarks on one of his routine late-night walks with his loyal dog, Bosley. These walks, quiet and reflective, have become a nightly ritual, allowing him to cope with the grief of losing his wife, Maria, to cancer. Her death left a void in his life, and although his children have long since moved out, the familiarity of the farm and his late-night strolls give him a sense of control and comfort in the otherwise overwhelming loneliness. His walks offer a chance for him to reconnect with nature, reliving memories of better days when his family was whole. However, on this particular night, as he passes by his own home, something catches his attention. A movement in the second-story bedroom window, the very room he once shared with Maria. His breath catches, his pulse quickens, but when he rushes inside to investigate, the house is as empty as it's always been. Yet the feeling that something isn't quite right lingers. The scene sets the stage for the emotional and psychological turmoil that is to follow. Through the protagonist's introspective thoughts, we learn about his relationship with Maria, the love they shared and how he has struggled with her absence. The farm, once a symbol of life and family, now feels more like a hollow shell of his former existence. But it's not just his own grief that haunts him. There's something else, something in the shadows of his home, a presence that makes him question the reality of his isolation. Act 2, escalating tension. As the nights pass, the tension begins to mount. On the second night, Bosley, usually calm and content, wakes the protagonist with a low, uneasy growl. At first, the man dismisses it as the dog reacting to some distant animal, but then he hears it, footsteps. Not outside, but coming from above, from the room directly over his bedroom. The very same footsteps he used to hear Maria making late at night when she would get up for water or tend to something quietly. A chill runs down his spine. Armed with nothing but a flashlight, he ventures upstairs, moving slowly as though each creak of the floorboard might betray his presence to whoever or whatever was there. But when he pushes open the door to the master bedroom, there is nothing. No intruder, no signs of life. Yet the sensation of being watched, of something just out of sight, is palpable. His heart pounds, but he chalks it up to paranoia, to an overactive imagination triggered by his deep-seated grief. The next evening, things take another unsettling turn. After dinner, the protagonist settles into bed, making sure to turn off all the lights downstairs as usual. But in the middle of the night, he stirs and notices a soft glow coming from beneath his bedroom door. The lights downstairs are on. His mind races. He knows, without a doubt, that he turned them off. Someone or something has been inside the house. This realization marks a shift in the protagonist's sense of safety. What started as a vague unease now feels like an imminent threat. The house, his sanctuary, begins to feel like a trap. The once comforting silence of the farm is now a breeding ground for his anxiety, as every noise becomes suspect, every shadow a potential harbinger of danger. The tension escalates further when the protagonist has his first direct encounter with the mysterious figure haunting his home. One night, unable to sleep, he decides to confront whatever is causing these disturbances. As he approaches the bedroom where he and Maria had spent so many years together, he notices something off. The closet door is ajar, and the clothes he had carefully packed away after Maria's death are scattered across the floor, as if someone or something had been rifling through them. His heart sinks. Suddenly he sees her, a woman standing in the doorway watching him. But it isn't Maria. The figure is unfamiliar, her face pale and indistinct in the dim light. Before he can react, she turns and flees, disappearing down the stairs. He gives chase, rushing after her, but by the time he reaches the front door, she's gone. The farm is vast, and the darkness swallows any trace of her. He searches the property in vain, unable to find a single clue as to who she was or where she went. From this moment on, the protagonist's fear becomes all-consuming. He no longer feels secure in his own home. He begins sleeping with a rifle by his bed, ready to protect himself from the unknown intruder. His daily life is marked by constant vigilance. Every creak, every gust of wind outside sets his nerves on edge. He finds himself obsessively checking doors, windows, and even keeping Bosley closer than ever. The house, once a place of cherished memories, now feels like a haunted maze, with every corner hiding a new potential threat. His sense of control is slipping, and the line between reality and paranoia begins to blur. Then, one evening, the haunting presence makes itself known again. The protagonist, sitting in his living room, suddenly becomes aware of something outside. He looks up and sees a dark silhouette standing in the yard, watching him through the window. It's the same woman he saw before. This time she doesn't flee immediately. She stands there, motionless, as if daring him to come closer. His hands shake as he grabs his rifle and rushes outside, firing warning shots into the air. The crack of gunfire echoes across the empty fields, but the woman vanishes into the night, leaving the protagonist standing alone in the cold, his breath visible in the frosty air. Despite his efforts, he feels powerless, unable to rid himself of this spectral figure who seems to be tormenting him for reasons he cannot understand. Act 4, Climax and Resolution. The final act brings the protagonist to his breaking point. Determined to put an end to the torment, he decides to confront the mysterious figure head-on. On the next night, when Bosley growls again, he grabs his rifle and heads outside, prepared for whatever might come. As he approaches the barn, he sees her, the woman standing in the moonlight, her figure eerily still. But this time, she doesn't flee. He steps closer, rifle aimed, but before he can pull the trigger, she vanishes, as though swallowed by the night itself. There is no sound, no trace of her. Just the silence of the farm and the cold wind biting at his skin. In the aftermath, the protagonist reflects on what has happened. The woman hasn't returned since that last encounter, but the memory of her presence lingers, haunting him in the quiet moments. He realizes that perhaps this wasn't just a physical intrusion, but something deeper. A manifestation of his own unresolved grief, his loneliness, and his guilt over losing Maria. Bosley remains his only true companion, a tether to reality in a world that has become increasingly uncertain. Though the immediate threat seems to have passed, the tension never fully dissipates, leaving the protagonist with the unsettling knowledge that some ghosts, whether real or imagined, never truly go away.